Thank you for spending some time with the Community Violence Intervention Center. My name is Koya Tompkins, and I'm the president and CEO of CVIC, where our vision is to end interpersonal violence in 2 generations through safety, healing, and education. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics of the healing category, and this is therapy. We're very fortunate today. We have with us Kayla, our director of therapy, as well as Therese, our vice president of therapy. So thank you so much for being with us today, Therese. Do you want to maybe start by educating us? So of course we specialize in domestic violence and sexual assault prevention and intervention, but what are some of the most common types of trauma you see coming in to our therapists who see clients?
Because we work primarily with survivors of domestic and sexual violence, that's what the trauma is related to. It's related to the experiences of abuse that people have had. So with our adult survivors, it could be someone who's experienced domestic violence in their home. It can be a survivor of childhood sexual abuse or someone who experienced the recent sexual assault. And that can lead to experiences like post-traumatic stress symptoms or increased anxiety, but various traumas related to those experiences.
And pretty complicated too, right? It's not always one issue. It could be a variety of things.
Right, and oftentimes it takes a while for people to seek out services. So it might be someone who experienced childhood sexual abuse who's finally reaching out to us at the age of 40, 50. So there might be a lot of things and experiences that they are unpacking with that therapist.
And why is therapy such an important part of our process? It's one of the core sort of pillars of our healing philosophy. Why is it such an important part of the process as people face trauma?
Well, trauma can lead to lasting wounds, and say someone who's experienced domestic violence might have heard over and over again that they're not good enough, that they're at fault for the violence they're experiencing, and it's happening because of something they did, which they can internalize some of those messages that can be really hard to move away from them. Mm-hmm. And so part of healing is unpacking those messages and learning different ways to think about it and helping modify that for them.
One of the things I am so proud of at CVIC is we've really taken a look at different types of therapy and how they can really have a lasting impact on clients as they're going through this healing process. And Kayla, I'm going to try to say this acronym because we use the acronym EMDR, Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing Therapy. That's been very effective of late. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
So EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. So essentially what it is we utilize bilateral stimulation to activate both sides of the brain. And by doing this, we're able to decrease the distressful reactions to the traumatic events. And EMDR isn't like a typical talk therapy. We come, we sit, we do bilateral stimulation, and we work on their reactions to the stimulation. It's not going into the nitty-gritty of their life. It's not going into real significant details about their traumatic events, but it's really just work with the brain and activating both sides of the brain.
And what are clients, how does it help them get through it?
Mm-hmm. So it helps limit that distress response. There's a like a filing cabinet analogy that we have all these files and all these memories and all these experiences like in our brain, in our filing cabinet. But EMDR, what it does is it helps to compile those traumatic events and traumatic memories into its own separate file for you to kind of access whenever you feel like and open it whenever you feel like it. One of my favorite parts of EMDR is really like visually being able to see the distress go down in a person. They might come into session, they might be tense, they might be hard, they might be stiff, and visually being able to see just that weight lifting off their shoulders.
And sometimes it's a light, right, that you might use on the wall or something like that.
Yeah, so we use, it can be a light bar, or we use pulsars that the light kind of helps our eyes move back and forth to help activate both sides of the brain, or using pulsars to be able to feel the different vibrations on both sides of our body that can help activate both of those sides of the brain.
you know, a lot of us who don't do this every day, we kind of have these visions of what a therapy session might be. Maybe it's a couch or a big comfy chair, and I'm going to have to talk for an hour and share a lot of deep feelings. How is this different than that?
Right. I think that's one of the things that people like a lot about EMDR is that it's not necessarily that. You know, when someone's experienced the trauma, the thought of going in and bearing your souls around those issues that you've experienced and those really tough things might not be what someone would like to do. So EMDR is an easier way to do that, where you don't have to go so in depth about those individual experiences. A person's still processing through it in their mind, but outwardly to the therapist, I don't have to share all that pain out loud. And then the therapist teaches me ways to put it away too when it becomes something I can't handle.
It seems like it could be really effective, especially for people who don't really love to talk and share and things like that.
Yeah, sometimes that sharing can be a barrier to moving forward in therapy, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other things you'd like to share about this specific therapy, or if someone's maybe curious about it? Because it's probably not something a client's going to ask you specifically for.
Yeah, it's really one of those evidence-based models that specific therapists utilize. You have to be trained in it specifically, and so I think some clients, they hear about it from maybe other providers that maybe aren't necessarily trained in it, but know that there are providers in Grand Forks that are trained in it. Is one of the leading therapies in helping clients process through their trauma.
Yeah, and obviously if we can get them through that quicker, why not, right?
Yeah.
So, well, thank you both for being here.